Okay, so what I want to do is I want to first look at just a basic graph, okay, and then we'll work through each type of transformation one at a time. The basic graph is going to look like this, okay, where you have your vertex at 0, 0, and you just have those points. Now this is going to be a parabola. Whenever we're dealing with a parabola, as long as you have the vertex and then one point on either side, that's all you need in order to plot the vertex. In order to plot the parabola. Now this is your basic graph. Now let's look at a vertical shift. For instance, let's look at this one. Now I know that this is a vertical shift because I have the function x squared and then a number is being added or subtracted. Now a number being added or subtracted to the entire thing, that means your entire graph is going to move up 4 slots. So let's count the four places up. So you could look at it as moving your vertex. Move your vertex up 4 spots. So your vertex starts here, then we move it 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, your first point on one side is right here, so move it up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing with the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that would be a vertical shift. Now let's look at, now what if it happens to be going down? Okay, so that would be where you have the entire function and a number is being subtracted from it, so it's just going to move down 2. So whereas it started here, we're going to move it down 1, 2. It was here, it goes down 2, 1, 2. It was here, it goes down 2, 1, 2. Okay, now let's look at a horizontal shift. Okay, so again, here I'm going back to my original, y equals x squared. Now what does a horizontal shift look like? A horizontal shift is going to be where you have a number that's being added or subtracted to x. Notice here that I don't have, like in the case before, I had the entire function, x squared, and then I added a number. And this one is different. In this one, I have the x, and a number is being added or subtracted to that x. And that entire function is now not x, but it's x plus a number, x minus a number. All right, so this is going to be a horizontal shift. Now, the way I remember these is, to me, these are just the opposite of what you expect. Okay, so if a number is being subtracted, your tendency is to think that it goes to the left or into the negative direction, but it's just the opposite. So if it's being subtracted, go the opposite direction, go in the positive direction. So whereas your first point starts here, you're going in the positive direction, 4 spaces horizontally. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. This one here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, if you have y equals x, let's say plus 2, then it's all squared. Now it's being added, so my natural tendency would be to go the right, but I know that this is a horizontal shift, which is just the opposite, so you actually go to the left. So 1, 2. 1, 2, and then 1, 2. Okay? Now let's look, what if it's reflected? Let's look and see what it looks like if it's reflected. Okay, so let's look at a reflection. What does that look like? The reflection about the x-axis is going to be if you have a negative sign. If that x squared is now a negative x squared. Okay, and that all that is basically, I want you to imagine that you're taking this graph and this is on a piece of paper. Now imagine that you painted this line with some wet paint and it's still wet. Now what would happen if you took and you folded that piece of paper along this x-axis? When you open it up, you would see the original one, and you would also see the wet paint had been transferred on the bottom like this. Okay, so whenever I think about a reflection, that's the way I like to think of it. If I'm reflecting about the x-axis, imagine that you fold that piece of paper, or even if it's looking at itself in a lake or a pond or a piece of water. You know, what is it going to look like if you look at yourself in a lake? Well, it would go in the opposite direction. So it would look like this. Now, if you have something to where it's a combination of the two, for instance, you have it's both negative and you have something going on inside of it. Okay, and we'll do this one in purple. That means that not only are you reflecting, okay, but you also have a horizontal shift. So you can do this in 2 steps. I like to think of it as pick one of them. Pick either the reflection to do first or the horizontal shift. Since I've already got the reflection right here in red, now I'm going to take this reflection and I'm going to move it using the horizontal shift. Okay, instead of it being, and we're going to move it in the negative direction, or the left. Okay, so I'm going to take that red graph and I'm going to shift it over 2 spots. Okay, and that would be the combination of the two. Alright, so hopefully this explains transformations a little more in depth than what you've got in your course currently.